Jim Sterling recently posted a review of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Then some people went fucking mental. Let's talk about it.
Jim fucking Sterlingson, as he is known to some insane indie developers, gave Nintendo's latest Zelda a 7 out of 10. In his review, Sterling cited the game's numerous puzzle shrines and hard difficulty as detractors, but praised the sense of adventure. He even said Breath of the Wild offers some of the most absorbing experiences a Zelda game ever has. But he contrasted this by saying, unfortunately, it makes you work harder for it than you should, buried as it is under small but constant irritations. 7 out of 10 is a good score. It's even labelled as good on his website. He later pointed out on Twitter that is indeed a positive review, and 7 out of 10 on his metric is a good score. But some people disagreed.
People went wild after Sterling's review went live, but before we look at that, let me tell you about Metacritic. For a while, Breath of the Wild was ranked as the 4th best game ever made according to Metacritic, which, as we all know, aggregates the scores of lots of reviewers into one meta score. Jim Sterling started to cop some shit when people noticed the Metacritic score for Breath of the Wild had slipped from a massive 98 to a disastrously low 97. Just to illustrate the gravity of this catastrophe, Jim Sterling's review knocked Breath of the Wild down 15 places below Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 on the list of the best games ever made. Zelda fans reacted violently to this and unleashed a torrent of rage in Sterling's general direction, even going as far as to send the man death threats.
Some fans even took it on themselves to create forum threads dedicated to hurling abuse at Jim Sterling, ironically calling him a crybaby and saying that he whines too much. Sterling's website, thejimquisition.com, was even hit by a denial of service attack. The proclaimed goal was to remove his coverage, but as he is a registered critic, his coverage had already been recorded and logged. The abuse Sterling received was pretty atrocious, along the lines of drink bleach, and he has even been accused of running a publicity stunt to get more traffic to his site. To me, this is gaming fanaticism at its worst. I mean, how far can you take this? You know, people are upset by other people's opinions, so they're trying to deny him his opinion, just to censor him in some way, which in my eyes is completely, it's wrong.
And this review is not a bad review, as he pointed out. It's 7 out of 10. It's got the word good on it. He overall enjoyed it, but because he points out the problems that he had with it, and because his review isn't quite as glowing as all the other reviews out there, it brings the Metascore down by 1 point, and people lose their fucking minds over it.
Anyone who objectively reads the review or watches the video will notice that he's positive in a lot of aspects, but he's also negative as well. It is balanced.
Yeah.
It's not just completely negative and ripping on this game. He likes the game. He says that in the review. A lot of people enjoy Jim's reviews because he's not afraid of putting it out there and telling people what the most negative parts of the game are.
But for me, this is about validation more than anything else. When people buy a game, especially a new console and a new expensive new game, you know, they want to feel validated. They want to feel like they made the right choice. So if someone comes forward and suggests that maybe the game isn't that good and maybe it's not worth your time as much, then people lose their minds over it.
This is just someone's opinion. The fact that Jim throws in all the negative things where other people might not do, I defend to my death his right to do that. Even though I don't agree with everything that he might say, I mean, I will defend his right to say what the fuck he wants, because
that's the whole point.
Yeah, that's the whole point of it.
Review. Like, you should not take one review as yes or no, buy the game, yes or no. You need to read and watch a lot of things to get a good broad picture, and don't let one critic and one critic's opinion, ruin everything for you. It just doesn't work like that, because people are different. There's no escaping that. People will always be different. They'll have different opinions, come at things from different points of view. It doesn't make any difference. It's still an incredibly well-received game, one of the best games of all time according to Metacritic. That hasn't changed based on what Jim Sterling said about it. But the main thing here is just calm the fuck down. We think the hype culture that surrounds gaming is getting out of hand, but who's at fault for this culture? Well, everyone is when you think about it. Game developers and publishers use hype as a marketing tactic to drive sales of their games. They love to tout pre-order figures, and they flood websites with previews and adverts. They create an environment which fosters hype, and they use it to their advantage, but they aren't alone in spreading this kind of hype mentality either. The games press themselves, they're all too happy to pass this hype on to consumers. We're not afraid to say that the majority of news sites largely just repost press releases given to them by publishers and then provide hype-building coverage of games through hands-on events put on by publishers and marketing firms. Developers and publishers make sweeping cinematic demos and trailers which are purposefully made to generate excitement, but people buy into it so easily and their expectations get way out of hand. So the gaming press, whether intentionally or not, feed the hype machine as well.
This feeds back into the relationship between the press and the publishers. It's no secret that publishers do not react to criticism all that well, and they have in the past restricted access to pre-release games from critics. Going back to Jim Sterling, Konami famously put him on a reviewer blacklist, calling him a wild card, so they didn't provide him with review copies anymore because he was critical of them in the past. So fair enough, gaming press have a reason to be fearful of being critical because they might end up damaging their relationships with publishers and losing pre-release access.
But calling someone a wild card is completely, I mean, that's just going to go in their favour. If they're making a career out of their opinions, then, you know, a wild card sticker is just going to be a huge badge of honour, surely.
Then there's the reviews which over the years have lost credibility by reducing the value of the scores they give to games. Before the 360 and PS3 generations, scores were a lot more varied and more indicative of a game's quality. For example, a 6 or 7 meant the game was good and still worth playing, whereas 8s, 9s and 10s were given to the truly amazing games. Nowadays, scores have lost some of their value as reviewers freely hand out scores of 8, 9 or 10 to any half-decent game. So people are led to believe that if a game scores lower than an 8, then it's not worth playing or it's a bad game, which is not how the system is meant to work at all.
But all this aside, ultimately we have to take responsibility ourselves. Stop fanboying it up. Stop swearing allegiance to consoles and companies. Calm down and adopt a more logical mindset. Research and enlighten yourself by reading opposing opinions. Going back to Sterling's review of Zelda, Nintendo fans have felt it necessary to jump to the game's defense because the review was not quite positive enough. Jim Sterling is an experienced critic giving his opinion on the game. His review was one good review in a sea of glowing reviews. Trying to censor it because it's not quite good enough is just bad for free speech. It's bad for the industry and it's bad for you as a consumer.
Reviews are there to help people make a judgment on a game and whether to buy or not. Reviews are not there as a prestige token or having your favourite game ever being better than like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, because that
it's
scale
not as good as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
Because the fact that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 is the second best game on Metacritic ever is testament to the fact that the whole scheme is bullshit.
Yeah.
So
that's not a slight on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
No,
it's a good game.
All right, Mike. I think we've got the point that you like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Well, it's the second best game of all time, mate. Why wouldn't I like it?
So after all that bullshit about freedom of speech, let's take a look at what you've been freely saying in our comments this week.
First up, Kevin Murphy comments on the COD Modern Warfare Remastered DLC video. Jesus, fuck this noise. Interesting trivia. The word boycott comes from an English landowner in Ireland named Charles Boycott. People hated him. They refused to serve him in shops, pubs, the market, etc. And he had to fuck off. Maybe in future, the word will be called Activision.
So boycott had to fuck off.
Comment.
That is awesome. That's the best. That's the best type of comment. Make us think. Make us. Yeah.
He's got a bit of opinion in there, and then a bit of QI going on.
Jesus, fuck this noise. This is the Cockney.
Yeah. Fuck this noise. Bit of trivia, lads. Nice.
Next up, Sam Vimes comments on the Mass Effect video we made. I'm still mad that EA took over BioWare. There's no chance of ever getting a Jade Empire sequel. Instead of getting a proper third installment to Knights of the Old Republic, we got a bland MMO. And Dragon Age has turned into generic open world garbage. I hate you, EA.
Yeah, they've done a lot of bad things, and BioWare, based on the Mass Effect Andromeda impressions we've seen so far, they're just not what they used to be, and that is, it's EA's fault. I mean, they bought them, and they're getting them. They're just EA's RPG wing, as we said last week or a couple of weeks ago. That's all. They're just EA's RPG machine now, and Dragon Age Inquisition was such a bad game.
Talk about fall from grace.
Yeah, that's it. From being one of the best developers out there to just, they're fine. They're fine.
Just a footnote to Activision.
Yeah. Hopefully, CD Projekt Red are basically doing what BioWare were doing, 15, 20 years ago, if you ask me.
Next up, Kevin Hagler commented on the Nintendo Switch video. At first, I was turned off by all the bitching on this channel, and now I love it.
I don't think we're bitching. I think we're, just having a chat, aren't we? That's what people do.
We do bitch about No Man's Sky, Mike.
Yeah.
We bitch in almost
it's
every
worth
video.
Bitching about.
Have we mentioned No Man's Sky in this video? No. Yes, I just have now.
Coel700 comments on this week's podcast. It's funny that from the entire YouTube review community, Angry Joe has the most valid rating system.
Now, this is funny because when I first read that comment, I read valid ranting system, and I thought to myself, like, if he's got a good ranting system, what's our ranting system like?
Method of ranting.
Yeah. How are we on the ranting scale compared to Angry Joe? We're not quite there yet.
That's interesting because, as far as I'm aware, his system is like 10 out of 10, but he's got like badass seal of approval or something, which is like you can get an 8 out of 10 but still be badass or whatever. He just has a bit of fun with it, I suppose. But one thing he does do that's different is he's quite tight on the scores, which is what we were talking about in the video earlier. Like, view scores are getting pushed higher and higher and higher because 7s, 8s and 9s are a lot more liberally kind of rewarded. Joe gives a game a 5 if it's alright, which is better, and that I've got to agree with it. It's not the best. I think there's various different ways of doing it, and it doesn't really matter. It's the words of the review that are important.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly.
But yeah, I would agree that he's quite tight with his scores, and that's pretty good.
I think a lot of the times that review scores undermine the actual words in the review. It's what's important. It's like, who does this game appeal to? That's what's most important. And throwing that out the window, I think when we do reviews, we should have a ranting system. Like, we should rant these games. Yeah. Like, if it's really shit, it should be like 10 out of 10 rant.
But yeah,
how do you feel about that?
How do we rant about how good it is, though?
Yeah, but this is
we'll
the
find
negative.
a way.
Yeah, this is we're still in discussions about how to do reviews, but I'm throwing that out on the table.
Very, very intelligent, considerate discussions. So thanks a lot for watching this week's Saturday show. Were you one of the lunatics who were DDoS attacking Jim Sterling's website? Let us know why the hell you did it down in the comments. Remember to leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy the video. We've got some more content right here for you and a link to Patreon if you want to support us. We'll see you next time.